Okay, so I'm here to talk about greener code with Drupal. A little bit of a disclaimer, I'm not actually a Drupal developer, I'm a Symfony developer, but the concepts I'm about to explain is for everyone. So, I'm up here with stage fright to share this message with you all, because it's a really important message. And the thing is, I'm just a girl standing in front of a crowd, asking you to love the planet. And I promise not to do any more movie quotes. It's an awkward show of my age. So let's talk a little bit how I got into sustainable software topic. I was working on a project which, well, it didn't have any real purpose for me. It was fun code-wise, but purpose, I didn't really find it. So I had to find my own purpose. And in my free time, I already did a lot for sustainability. Like take crazy 48-hour train rides just to avoid a plane. And it's fun. And how could I do this at work too? Because all of us do so much of work. And in case you get nothing else out of the talk, here's a picture of me with a dragon, not AI generated, because it's old. This talk isn't rocket science, because it really has to be for everyone. We have a problem today. The web is becoming more wasteful. I would sort of like to say worldwide waste. We put things out there, and with AI generating content, it's more wasteful than ever. So we do not have an energy production crisis. We have an energy consumption crisis. We consume far too much of the Earth produces. And in the last 40 years, our appetites have exploded. Yeah, we like all these advances in digital technology. It's awesome. And of course, recycling and all these things, it's great. But it's often a form of greenwashing. Of course, to go 100% renewable would not be without the costs. The machines that make wind and solar, it needs raw materials to be manufactured. So whatever we do, energy is expensive. So we consume too much energy, that's a problem. We can't go on like this. So if the internet was a country, it would be the world's 4th largest polluter. That's quite polluting. And I feel in communities that make so much of the web, like the Drupal community, imagine if we could do just some small tweaks of us together. What sort of big impact that has together. In 2023, video made up 82.5% of all internet traffic. The problem is that video is inefficient. They say that a picture paints 1,000 words. Well, not quite. 1,000 words is 6 kilobytes, which is about 2 A4 pages. And 2 A4 images is 160 kilobytes, well compressed. And a 30-second video is 3 megabytes. And today we're moving more and more to video. Talking about worldwide waste. Do we really need that 30-second clip? Or can we go back to text again? So, to reduce carbon emissions of software, there's a couple of things we can think about. There's energy efficiency, which is pretty straightforward. Consume the least amount of electricity possible. There's carbon awareness. Do more when electricity is clean, and less when it's dirty. We will get more into this. And there's hardware efficiency. Use the least amount of embodied carbon possible. Make sure your code can run legacy software. PHP is hardware. PHP is usually really good at this. Running at old servers, it means we don't need all new servers. And that goes for personal life as well. Don't keep updating your hardware, your phone, everything like this. So of course, I'm hardly alone in thinking about sustainability on the web. There are the V3C sustainability guidelines, and they're really, really great. It's split into 4 sections. User experience, covering research and ideation, journey design, content and essence, quality assurance. There's web development, which is where most of us shine. Hosting, infrastructure and systems, which I'm sure Platform SH would happily talk to you about at this conference. And there's business strategy and product management, which is really interesting, but not a topic I will get into. And one thing that they mention in the sustainability guidelines is align technical requirements with sustainability goals. I like to sum this up as think before you act. If you think sustainably before you even code, a lot of things will be easier rather than refactoring later. Then security. So websites that have no outstanding security issues are less likely to become a target for individuals who might exploit them. If you have your website exploited, it consumes vast amount of data. So one thing you can do as Drupal developers is follow the Drupal security guidelines. And I like to talk about the CIA triad in security. It's part of the ISO 27001 certification. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality ensures that information is accessed only by authorized individuals. So, that's really great. But how does that help us? It reduces redundancy and waste. And it protects sensitive data. And of course, as I mentioned, secure systems reduce the environmental impact of breaches. So imagine a breach in a cloud system, and it might result in large-scale file transfers, and that takes a lot of resources. You have to re-encrypt databases and all kinds of things. That's really bad, not only for your own reputation, for all those people that data leaked, but also for the planet. Then there is integrity. It ensures that information is accurate and unaltered. And it prevents resource waste. Imagine a weather forecasting system built for everyday use. If its data integrity is compromised, resources may be wasted recalibrating everything. And then there's availability, which ensures that information systems are accessible and usable by authorized individuals when required. Now, this is an interesting one because you would think if the system isn't available, it would have absolutely no resource cost. So that would be sustainable, right? Well, the goal here is, of course, that we want software that works. And if it's not available, we might get into trouble rebooting it again. So imagine a website crashing on a high load. It requires emergency resource allocation, over-provisioning, all these kinds of things. So if you have a website that is available and runs well, it also uses less resources overall. Then there's some things that is important to say. Please do not limit the length of the passwords and limit login attempts. Cookies are not a reliable method to store login attempts. And like to say, annoy the users for the planet. ReCAPTCHA is a pretty easy solution, and multi-factor authentication. The sustainability guidelines talks different ways about this thing, summarized as avoiding dependency hell. Basically make sure never use more code than what you actually use. Never have more code in your code base. Never have that bloated thing that you don't need. And for that we have a great tool in PHP. I don't know if it's something similar in Drupal itself. But you can definitely use it in Drupal project as well. It's called Composer Unused. Have a quick demo of how it works. If I typed any quicker. Ta-da! Regularly check your dependencies and keep them up to date. If you do this, it also means it's more secure, which we saw. It's really good for sustainability. And I really think that sustainability and accessibility go hand in hand. And there's the European Accessibility Act now, so really act on this. Because accessible websites reduces the need for alternative solutions. If you need another solution as well, like paper or audio clips, whatever you might need, that makes it a lot more resources used unnecessarily when your website could have all of it for everyone. When a website is not accessible, people with disabilities may require assistive tools or alternative ways to access that information. And an accessible website minimizes need for duplicated resources. It's great. And of course, optimized design reduces digital waste. And accessibility ensures everyone, regardless of ability, can participate in the digital world. Empowering more people to use the same resources reduces inequalities. And it also aligns with the UN Sustainability Development Goals. Now here's a thing that we like to often forget. We like to optimize our own code bases as much as we possibly can. I'm sure a lot of you already do this. And then you use this third-party library, and you don't think about what it's doing. So assess them too, and see maybe you can use another one that is actually less wasteful. And of course, no talk without mentioning AI. When OpenAI trained its LLM, called GPT-3, that produced an equivalent of around 500 tons of carbon dioxide. I could have a return flight from Sweden to Sydney for that. Not even. Many flights from Sweden to Sydney. And I'm not saying not to use AI, because AI is here to stay. But maybe we don't need to use a general AI, like OpenAI, for everything. We can use smaller models. We can use local models. We can minimize and use the possible smallest thing that you can first, and then use the big thing if you need it. But don't go big by default. That's a disaster waiting to happen for the planet. Of course, optimize your databases. Run fewer, simpler queries. Performance directly impacts carbon emissions. Performance optimization is not optional for a sustainable website. So if there's one thing you can do, is look at performance. And that already saves the planet. For that, read and follow the Drupal performance docs. And not doing work is faster than doing it. So consider solving problems in other ways than with code. You might not need to code the solution. You might be able to have a text paragraph somewhere instead of a fancy thing. Who knows? And you need to use tooling to find all those different places around. You can't just guess that this part of the website might be slow. You really need to check. So, that's enough about the sustainability guidelines, but there's so much more to it, and I suggest you all read it if you're interested in that. Did you know that web traffic in 2021 exceeded 2.8 zettabytes? 1 zettabyte is 1.16 billion bytes, or 1,000,000,000, lots of zeros. Simply, it would mean 1 billion 1 terabyte hard drives. To put it into a measure you maybe can visualize. I can't visualize 1 billion 1 terabyte hard drives, but it's a lot. Data storage is cheap. Is it? Really? We have to think twice with what we store and if we actually need to store it. And a lot of web traffic is through APIs. How about we make more sustainable APIs? So let's now look at carbon awareness. There's this awesome map, electricitymaps.com, where it measures right now. When you go to it, you will see right now where energy is greener. And as you can see, Switzerland is pretty green, so it's Sweden where I'm from. But that's because we have one thing in common. We depend a lot on hydropower. But what happens if you look at a country like the Netherlands? If we compare Sweden and Netherlands during daytime, it looks like this. Sweden has a lot of hydro and some nuclear, and the Netherlands has a lot of solar, and a lot of gas as well. But what happens when the sun goes down? Poof! Suddenly, your data centers in the Netherlands run almost completely on gas. So you really have to be mindful where your data is and at what time you compute your resources. So that's why I'm introducing API Echo Mode. So let's say we have a PHP Elephants shop, and here we can put Echo Mode on. So you know, in a dishwasher, when you put Echo Mode on, it takes forever because it uses colder water, but it's more efficient. It's the same principle here. Using a queue-based system, you can then put the echo things into the echo queue and the other things into the priority queue. And that means that we can choose then to run the echo queue when the energy is greener. And of course, depending on load on the servers and things, you might need different calculations. It might be during the night for you anyway, because you can't manage it. But yeah, this is something to think about. So message queues are a really cool thing to use, especially in bigger projects. They're energy efficient, they're scalable, and they reduce idle resources. If you're doing backend development, look into queues if you haven't already. I saw that Drupal actually uses Symfony Messenger, so it's a pretty cool thing to use. So to summarize, read through the V2C sustainability guidelines, use static code analysis. Performance is still extremely important. Security is always a no-brainer. Accessibility is an important part of sustainable web development. Yeah, think before you act. And if your data centers are in solar power countries, let your server sleep at night. And for complex big projects, consider using a queue-based architecture and the API in echo mode. So, let's talk about sustainability. Clean your code for a clean planet. Thank you. Any questions?
How do you argue, like, let's say the queuing system, let's say you have an echo mode and a priority mode. It probably costs more to build two queues. You have two things to test. Like, it's like you invest time or money to build then the double mode system. How do you argue this with a customer that in the end pays for time and material? Like, can you calculate that in the end, like, or how do you convince a customer to do that? Because for a customer point of view, initially, it's much more work, therefore much more cost.
Setting up a second queue in itself is not that much work with Symfony Messenger. It's another queue. So, yes, there is some more cost. And you would have to argue that with the customer. But it would take 1-2 hours to set up. So I think most customers would agree to it. Then, of course, there is the resource cost. If you don't have anything that is actually resource heavy, it's not worth it. That's why I said it's only for bigger projects. If it's for small projects, it's probably worth less.
So do you then also try, like, let's say on the infrastructure side, is it then also cheaper to run the echo mode on the infrastructure side, or do you purely just to say it used less energy, or do you try to connect it to an actual monetary value that it's then cheaper for the customer?
It is. So you can also check sometimes energy is more expensive and sometimes it's cheaper. So you can also use it that way to say, okay, we run it when energy is greener and cheaper. So that way we say, okay, you save money by using the EQ. So you can calculate it how you want depending on your customer's need. But in this scenario, it's only checking when the energy is greener for customers that are aware of sustainability. That will be an argument for them.
Okay.
Like that.
Because the infrastructure providers don't, like, let's say you host in Netherlands, a CPU costs the same during the day and during the evening.
Yeah.
Like, so you argue with the sustainability part and not actually the money part.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you.